about BYU's offense is it's as complete maybe as you face with the way they can run the ball. Roberts on the outside, the tight end gives them productive stuff. How would you describe the, trying to curtail what that offense does?
all that. They've done a great job. I think the offensive line's where it starts. That group is playing well together. They do a great job up front. Pass protections, run blocking, all the schematical stuff that everybody throws at them. That's where it starts to me. And then great skilled position players. The quarterback's playing well. Runs the football. It's 11-man football, across the field and vertically and horizontally. Obviously, the wideouts and tight end and tailbacks, and they've got all the pieces. So they're playing really well. Got a lot of juice. They play with a lot of energy, and it's very evident on videotape.
What did you want your unit to attack the most during the bye week, and how did they handle it?
Yeah, I think just recognizing. Some of the errors that we're making. Some communication things, and got a couple plays get away from us, which was obviously just kind of us. And then when you play good teams, they can expose you. So I think just trying to gear down a little bit, maybe what we're doing, the communication process, how we're doing it, and then better ways to do it. I think that's first and foremost going into this week. It's going to be a good football game. We're going to have to play, physical up front. We're going to have to play physical on the perimeter. They block you. The wideouts are tremendous blockers, the tight end. So they make you play, and that's why they're having great success, and we're going to have to match all of that.
Coach, it seems like every quarterback you play at this point is a threat to run. How much week to week does it change preparing for different styles of runners?
Yeah, great question. Great point, actually. They all are different in their own ways. Some quarterbacks, they run the football period. They're running plays. Some guys are, the option game's part of it. And then there's some guys that are, they scramble to run, and some guys, scramble to throw. And so all of those different things happen during the year. We've played a little bit of everything at this point. The tough ones are like this week where they can run it and throw it. And, they're throwing strikes down the field. And because they run it so well, obviously you have to get extra hats in the game. And then, the play action passes become, where they try to strike you. So we're going to have to be really good. We've played all of those. They all present different problems. They all have different, styles to their game. And this week will be a little bit different than probably anybody else we've played so far.
Was the focus a little different this bye week than it was the first one? And what was that defensively?
Trying to get some younger guys more reps because of the loss of some, when you're banged up, and you're trying to find depth at special teams. You're trying to find depth at positions across the, because now you're into week 7 versus, week 4. And I think the real emphasis became, who can help us? How do we get them enough reps without wearing them out, and get them prepared to play in this stretch that we're getting ready to get into?
On the back end with Trey and with Quentin, how valuable was that bye week for those guys and being relatively, new starters in the system?
Well, really important. They got thrown in there pretty quickly, and how it all happened. So they got thrown in pretty fast. They've done a great job. They continue to grow, and again, trying to get the guys behind them to give them a break a little bit. They went from playing, if there's 70 plays in a game, they were playing 25. The other guys were playing 50 to 60, and now all of a sudden they're playing 50 to 60, and we got to find guys that can give them a break. And really, a couple of those, they were playing close to 70 snaps in that game. So we've got to find some depth for them along the way here.
Coach, I think back to the point in last season where you lose 2 in a row, and then you're able to come back and rally the rest of the season kind of defensively and do just enough. What was what did you guys tap into in that point in the season, and how do you maybe find a little bit of that again?
Well, I think a couple of different things. I think one, our offense was really, really talented and good. I think they bailed us out a little bit. I think we found out who we could become. What could we do? and I think that's what we've tried to, this last couple weeks, like what can we do, who do we have, what pieces do we have, and depth and all of those things play into that. So you have to be able to put your guys and give them opportunities to have success, put them in the right positions. So we've really tried to who are we at this point of the season, not who we were when we started, who are we at this point, what do we have, how do we make it as simple as we can, how do we make it complex for the guys that we're playing against, and that's what the real challenge has become. But, I think our guys a year ago, I think you either sink or you swim, and I think we're at the crossroads, as Coach always says, we're either going to rally up here and we're going to fight like crazy, or it's going to go the other way. And I think we have a locker room of guys that really care.
Hey, Coach. So
Yes, ma'am.
you just said we found our identity. Who are you guys then as a defense?
Well, yeah, I think it's really, when I say that a little bit, it's like, what can we do? Like, what pieces do we have? What sub packages can we get into? We're at thin in the back end right now, so your sub packages of the dime and the nickel stuff that we were able to do early on, some of that's limited. So you're trying to figure out who you can sub in some pieces and all that kind of thing. We're probably more of our base defense right now than we've been all season, and getting back to doing some of the things that we've done, for years here. I think that's going to be the key. And again, you're taking some guys out there that haven't had lots of experience, so they've got to kind of learn fast on the run. And again, we've got to help them as coaches, my calling of defenses and their playing as well. So. We'll see who we are here down the stretch officially, but I think is what it has done when I talk about that is, what package can you be in? How can you marry up to, the teams that are playing with 3 or 4 wideouts? We got into that a little bit of Colorado, like, what are the sub packages that you can use, and who are the pass rushers you can get on, and just finding depth and numbers, and that's what we're still sorting through.
What's your key to success?
I think this week, stopping the run. I mean, we're going to have to defend the run game. I mean, they're a physical football team. I mean, they fall forward for 4 yards. I mean, it's on every videotape. And they're running the ball downhill, and whether it's the quarterback, and then they put the ball on the perimeter. They got great skill guys that run the jet sweeps, and they another form of their run plays are just the quick screens out in the flat to space, and they got wideouts that block, and it just it's all married together, and they've been in great rhythm. And we've got to be able to hold up physically and force the ball to where we can get it to where we know what's going on, and nobody's really been able to do that yet.
What's your evaluation of the new look defense over these last couple of games, and did you feel like there was improvement in Colorado game versus the Cincinnati game?
Yeah, I do. There was definite improvement. We let a couple plays get away from us. That was just kind of frustrating. It's not even discipline; it's just frustrating for everyone. We gave them a couple free plays, and they don't need any help. We're playing Big 12 teams that don't need any help. And I think, I was proud of the way they played in the game, to be honest with you. I think there were some times we went out there in some situations that, like, man, it didn't look real good, and our guys rallied up. So I think our locker room is in great shape. We've got to play better football, we've got to coach better football. I think our guys are excited about it. I don't ever sense this group never fighting. Like, this group has incredible resolve, and they'll show up and play.
And whether the film room or on the practice field, have you seen Jon and Coop kind of step up as mentors or unofficial coaches?
Yeah, they've just been around. Their biggest thing these last 10 days, whatever it's been since their surgeries, I think they've been trying to take care of themselves a little bit. They've been in and out of treatment, living in the training room, see them in meetings and those kind of things. They've been around a lot, but they really, I think, of just trying to get themselves back so they can at least move and walk on their own and that kind of thing. So they've been around some. In fairness, though, those guys are trying to, they've spent the last 10 days, had surgery, so they're trying to get themselves right. But they're always around. They've got great spirit. They're in all the meetings and player meetings and team meetings and all those kind of things. So it's great to see them. Players love having them around. It's been tough on them, I think, because, again, just being able to get around physically is part of what they're battling.
When you reach a moment that feels like a tangible crossroads, like you mentioned, what kind of energy does that produce in the locker room, and Is that different or heightened, like coming in a bye week where you kind of have to live with it for an extra week?
Yeah, good question. I think it's been different about probably everywhere that I've been. I think it all depends on the leadership in the locker room. I feel great about the leadership in our locker room, even though we lost a couple of those guys. But I think there's great resolve to get this thing right. And I think as long as you have that, you have energy. If you have purpose, you know, we all want something to live for, something to hope for, and something to love. And I think our team has all three of those things. And I think as long as you have that everywhere in society, you got a shot, and we'll have a shot. Appreciate y'all.
Coach Heacock talked about crossroads moments. You guys were probably at it last season, coming off 2 losses, finished the way you finished. You've talked about toughness. Every year there's a prove it moment. There's a you
Right.
know, contender, pretend, all that stuff. Where is this team at mentally to handle coming out of it the way you've come out of it many times in the past?
Yeah, I think we're going to find out a little bit more about ourselves. I've really enjoyed this team, and I think one of the things, even last Saturday, our kids, how they play, how they just keep playing, responding. I've been really proud of them. There's been never a wavering moment that I've watched this group surrender. And, I thought we had a great week, went back to work. And, there's a lot of little things, again, a lot of guys in some first-time moments where now they got to be the leader and they've got to be able to lead through this journey a little bit. But, the response, at least so far, has been really rewarding to watch. And, first of all, you got a great opponent that you got to play, let alone, us taking care of ourselves and making sure, man, some of those small things that have not allowed us to win the football games the last couple of weeks, we fix and go back to work. But I think our kids have been relentless in that process. So it's been really, honestly, from my end, it's been a joy to watch these guys work.
And you mentioned the opponent. They strike me as maybe as complete a team in all 3 phases that you faced. How would you describe that? I mean, they've got a kicker that hits game winners across the board.
Yeah, I think you hit the word right. They're a really great team. And obviously, I think, I've talked about Kalani before, my respect for him. Man, if my own son could play for anybody in college football, I would want my son to play for him. I mean, that's how much I think of him and how he leads a football program and a team. And you see it. I mean, they play for each other. They play really great complementary football, and they play great team football. And so all the things that when we've been our best and when we're at our best, there's some similarities in terms of how we want to play the game. But so much respect for them. And, across the board, they're playing really good football right now.
Matt, in what ways did you feel like this bye week was most productive for you guys, and do you have any updates on the injured players?
Yeah, I think probably, hopefully, a little bit of that is, getting a little bit healthier. Obviously, we lost Dom early, at Colorado. I think his ability to hopefully be back, I think we'll see a little bit more as the week goes this week, but, was at least out of practice today and find out exactly how much, his availability will be to us this week. Kyle trending up, which, I think for all of us is obviously a great reward for our football team to have Kyle back. We know he's been a huge impact for our football team. Carson Hansen doing a lot better, back to full strength. We expect him to play ready to go. And then I don't know who else am I missing right now that's at least in that question mark. Anybody else that you guys would ask? Yeah, Kaijan, certainly on the practice field. I think will be, available to us, certainly back ready to go, and hopefully he can be a great asset to us as well.
If not Kyle, is Chase healthy?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think we'll figure that out. I would not say he's back to 100%, but I think, at least back on the practice field. But I do feel like Kyle is in a really good spot. My expectation is Kyle will play.
And what stands out to you most when watching this BYU offense on film and their quarterback?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the physicality across the board from all 11 players. It starts with the toughness of their quarterback. I love their running back, tough, physical football player. And then, man, you look at those 5 offensive linemen, man, those guys are really talented players, guys that played a lot of football. So I think when you start with this BYU team, you talk about physicality and their ability to run the football, and then on top of that, they've got playmakers on the perimeter. You see it in their special teams game. You see it offensively. All those guys are doing great things in all phases of the game. So they're a complete offense and can really attack you in all facets of it.
Matt, how important is the line of scrimmage going to be against BYU on both sides?
Oh, I mean, as big as it can be. You know, I think the reality of it is you're playing one of the most veteran and complete O-line and D-lines that we faced this year. And so they're big, they're physical, and really they've done a great job in all the games of winning the line of scrimmage. And we're going to have to be ready to compete in those areas for sure.
It really struck me watching the post game at Colorado, how hard Rocco was taking his personal performance and stuff. How do you find that balance of you want him to have accountability and also him to continue to believe and all that kind of confidence?
Well, I think that's the great thing about Rocco, and I think I would say our all of our leadership here, like, it means the world to us. And I don't think any of us want to put our team in a situation where we don't feel like we're doing our best. And I think that's the hard thing about a guy like Rocco. Rocco's given us every opportunity to win every game we played, and that guy puts it on his shoulders, no different than I feel like I put it on my shoulders, and Coach Heacock puts it on his shoulders, and Mouse puts it on his shoulders. You want to have leaders that want to take responsibility, and unfortunately we're probably in a world where I don't know if the leaders want to take the responsibility, but in this building the leaders want to take responsibility and lead from the front. And so I'm way more grateful to have those kind of guys in this football program. It means we're going to work really hard to try to get things fixed.
You've talked so much about detail this year. In the last 2 weeks, I think you've accounted for over half of your penalties this season. How do you go about correcting that during the bye week?
Yeah, I don't know. I think those are things where, a little bit of it is our guys are pressing. I think a little bit of it is guys are, trying to, go make something happen instead of just kind of being, one play at a time. And that happens sometimes. And again, I think it goes back to, our kids care. I think there's a high-end investment. And, I think those are things that we work really hard at in how we practice. And the only way I really know how to address those things is the detail in which we practice. And, it's really what we've tried to sink our teeth back into is the fundamentals it takes to win football games. And again, we've been probably a hair off in how we've won games the last 2 weeks, and been really working to try to get those things corrected. But, that's the nice thing is they're all correctable. Those are things that we can correct and we can control.
Similar line of questioning. What have you seen from your team on third down in the last 2 outings? I think just 6 of 28. And how much of correcting that is being better on first and second down?
Yeah, I think that's skewed, though. I think you should go look at the stats on first and second down, right? I think we've actually been probably better on first and second down the last 2 weeks. I think the hard thing is you're going for it, or you're in a lot more 4-down situations, I think, the last couple of weeks. So I think it skews those numbers. And we have to be better, right? I mean, I think if you just look at the number in general, and we did obviously during the bye week, we weren't as good, comparable to the first 5 games. And I think it's something we got to do a better job of. Some of those are penalties. Some of those are, penalties have kind of hindered us. But, I think that's the thing that we went into last bye week, we wanted to be a little bit better on first and second down, and we were. And then, some of those self-inflicted wounds kind of put ourselves in some tougher situations. And like I said, we've had to be in some tougher situations just because we've been trying to be a little bit different on the plus side of the 50, because we had to play a game that's probably a little bit different than what we tried to play. So, yeah, those are all things we got to clean up. We got to be a little bit better for sure, and I think that's a great point. But, I think globally, I think our discipline and detail has probably got us more than anything.
To piggyback on that, when you're across the 50 with guys trying to do, did it feel like you're having to make a decision like you're playing high school football with, like, when you don't have a kicker? Like, you're not playing Big 12 football at that point, to some degree, obviously.
It's certainly a unique challenge, right? So I appreciate the question, and it's unique. But again, and as I told our kids, that is why they call you team, right? This is a team sport. And, the reality of it is we handled it against Arizona. We probably didn't handle it as well as we needed to in those other games. And again, those are things that is a unique challenge to it. And so there's nothing you can do about it other than, pick it up. We got to be, those are things that, some of those things are self-inflicted though, like I said, and those are things we have to clean up. This covering us as much as you have, is when we're really good, our detail is usually pretty darn good. And when we're not, our detail's a hair off, and those are things we can control. And so there's no excuse. There's no, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Like, we had every opportunity to make it happen, and we didn't. And so I think getting those things fixed are really important, no matter who's in the kicking game or what situation it is. That is team football. And so it's been a unique challenge, but that's part of it. And I think in some ways we did some really good things. In other ways, man, we needed to be better and we just weren't. And again, you can put that on me first, and I think it's a trickle-down effect a little bit.
How do you manage the bye week where regrouping, reframing is important, but also you don't want guys to wallow in 2 losses for an extra week to keep the momentum pushing in the same direction or forward?
Well, I think that's where I can say what I want, and I've said this forever, right? I mean, at this point of the season, they're shutting you off. I don't care who you are or where you're at. And that's where the locker room and the leadership and the veteran leadership in that locker room has got to be about what's right. And I mean, we're living in like a reality show now in college athletics, right? It's reality show USA. And if you don't have player-driven leadership, then I just don't know how you have the focus to get through the entirety of the year. And I think that's why I said from the beginning of the season, toughness is not physical toughness. Physical, it's mental toughness. Can you mentally stay together, stay at the task at hand, and keep driving forward? And I think the great thing here is we've had so much of that the last couple of years, and man, the great leaders have passed that down to the next group and passed it down to the next group, that it's really rewarding to be somewhere where you can kind of lean back and say, hey, we've been here, we understand what this looks like, how do we keep moving ourselves forward? So, you know, I think you just talk about those things. Those are things you better have talked about, honestly, before the season even started, because I think if you just get to it and say, oh man, we're here, and how are we going to get through it now, then I think you're a big mistake. And those are things I think we try to talk about through, man, the fall. I say this every year. You're going to have adversity. You're going to have tough days. Man, our world here, that's just how we're going to live. And how we respond to it defines who we become. And yeah, those are the crossroad moments, man. How do you respond when it's not going well? How do you pull yourself up and keep moving forward? So I look forward to the challenge. It's what I love about it and what I love about our kids. But, you know, you're going to hang your hat on our great leadership in that locker room. And we're really fortunate to have great kids right now.
Coach, what do you see out of Bear Bachmeyer at quarterback?
Yeah, he's really tough. You know, I would just say the first word that comes to my mind is he's just tough. He's gritty. He's tough. Man, I really love his ability to extend plays. I think he does a great job of that. He's physically tough, that he can almost, you know, literally run the football in the A and B gap throughout the football game and have the ability on the next play to make a great throw on the outside 10 yards deep. Like, that's hard to do, you know, when you're physically running the football like that. So really impressive in terms of just his mannerisms, his toughness, and you can tell that football team believes in him. He's got great leadership ability, and, you know, credit to him. He's really done a great job this year.
Hey, Coach, keys to success for your team?
Yeah, I don't think it really changes too much with us. You know, I don't care what game it's been. We got to win the turnover margin, number one. You know, we got to do a great job of creating explosives and eliminating explosive plays. And then, you know, I think from a special team standpoint, we got to be able to do a great job of playing what we're capable of playing in special teams. And so I think those 3 things are still pillars of our success. And, you know, they'll be pillars in this football game for sure.
If Conradi was going to play, would he play today?
Yes.
I think you've had 3 true freshmen play 3 games. A couple others, I think, have played 1 or 2. How do you go about managing whether or not to push them to 4 and 5 to potentially burn a red shirt as you guys are now past the midpoint of your season?
Yeah, always a really good question, and always probably individually unique. You know, I think you're always going to, and I've always said this, I'd rather play our guys too late than too early here. I just would, right? I'd rather be on the conservative side because I know how critical an extra year can help the majority of our football players, unless we're in a situation where a young man can really get quality reps, and those reps can really count in his development and really springboard him into a great sophomore year. And so, you know, we're in a kind of a unique spot with a bunch of those guys right now, and we'll need some guys that even haven't played yet to be able to step up for us and maybe help us here down the stretch, which we're excited about. So, you know, I really like this freshman class. They've been really competitive. I think the thing that's been really fun for me, and even last week, was just the amount of quality competitive reps to see who is ready to help this team. And but yeah, I think each situation is certainly unique and different, and we try to handle it. As the head coach, I try to handle it with each guy personally and try to make sure we're trying to do what's best for them and do what's best for the football team.
That's all we got.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.